everyone, and welcome to First Financial Biz Beat, presented by the Business Courier. I'm KYLA Woods. Well, it goes without saying that we're living in an unprecedented time right now. The norm, as most of us know it, is no more. Well, on the front page this week, this pandemic hits home. The full scope of the coronavirus is coming into focus, and it's a pretty bleak picture. Entire states are ordering people to stay home. Businesses are shut down for the foreseeable future. Schools are closed, and sports are essentially canceled.
And we're at war with a very, very dangerous and lethal enemy. Every one of us is in this fight. We don't need to go into the battlefield ourselves. We simply need to stay at home.
Well, the virus is sickening hundreds of thousands of people and crippling the economy, leaving us with a feeling of what now? This broadcast is dedicated to the Courier's special coverage of this extraordinary situation. To talk about that is editor Rob DAUMEYER. He joins us via Skype. Rob, it's good to see you. Let's get right into it. What businesses would you say and industries are being hit the hardest right now?
Well, so far, and this is at the beginning here, so far what's really being hurt the most are the most vulnerable companies, unfortunately. Small mom and pop businesses, small businesses of any kind, but specifically restaurants, retail. These are the kinds of companies, restaurants specifically, they have really thin margins to begin with, and they're closed. They've been trying this curbside service and carry-out service, but most restaurants are telling us that that's just simply not working. So right now it's small businesses, restaurants, retail.
Absolutely, and I think we've all heard that same sentiment, and we also have been hearing bull market and how difficult the economy and the market has been during this time. So what would you say the stocks are? How are those stocks of the local companies going to be affected by this, and maybe how they rebound?
Well, we're definitely in bear territory now. We've wiped out, the market's wiped out all its gains for the last 3 or 4 years. Locally, it's been a mixed bag. Some bank stocks have really taken it on the chin. Procter & Gamble's is kind of holding its own. It's down from its record high of earlier this year. It's down, but it's not cratering like a lot of stocks. And Kroger stocks, Kroger shares are actually up. They're up to their highest level in a couple years. Obviously, with how important grocery stores are going to be going forward in supplying us with our food, and Kroger's the biggest grocer in the country. So how they go, it's going to be a good bellwether to really start talking about when stocks come back. We'll just have to take a good look at Kroger and Procter & Gamble.
It's nice to hear a little bit of good news there, so thank you for that update. And then let's talk about what's next. Where do businesses go from here?
Well, it's going to be all about financing. Companies are going to need loans to stay open. Restaurateurs are calling for a bailout for them. You know, the federal government has talked about bailouts for certain segments of industries like the airlines and other industries that are going to be hard hit by this, the travel, the cruise industry. But restaurateurs are saying that they really need help the most. I mean, if you think about they're closed, but they're also operating with a bunch of people. They are some of the, if you add all the restaurants in Cincinnati up, it's one of the highest employment centers out there. And so all those people are at home right now, and it's going to sort of ripple through the economy, I think, from there. But we'll have to really just keep our eyes open for what the next stories are. Our cover this week was really just trying to sum up everything we'd seen from the past week.
It's certainly a day-by-day situation. Rob DAUMEYER, editor of the Business Courier, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll keep our eye on those stories this week.
Thanks, Kyle.
Well, Rob touched on the government taking steps to help combat the growing economic crisis. Congress is now debating a $1 trillion stimulus package. The centerpiece of that deal is cash for Americans. People who make less than $75,000 get a one-time $1,200 check. Married couples would get $2,400 plus $500 more for every child. The more you earn, the less you would receive. The package also would give billions to small businesses and some major industries. Experts say the virus's impact on the airline industry could be worse than 9/11. The TSA says the number of passengers is down 50%. CVG, one of our region's largest economic engines, is eerily quiet right now. Delta is the airport's largest carrier. It's grounding at least 300 of its planes and canceling 70% of flights. Emily Wade is a Delta flight attendant.
I'm a little nervous with possibly not having a job in the future, possibly having to be laid off.
Delta is asking for volunteers to take 3 months off with no pay. The Delta CEO is among the executives saying they will forego their salaries for a year. Social distancing is the big phrase right now. No doubt that you've heard it. Ohio's health director says steps the state is taking right now, like closing schools and limiting social gatherings, are helping.
We will slow it down. There's no scenario now by which we won't have a surge. But if we did nothing, the estimates were that 2.2 million Americans would die. And if we do these measures in the absolute way they're intended, again, we have no vaccine, there are no other things, these are our only tools, but if we do them, we can cut that hospital surge by these authors' example by 2/3.
To ensure Ohio hospitals are ready for that surge, elective surgeries are being postponed. That will free up protective equipment like gowns and masks for healthcare workers and beds for patients. And the Pentagon is sending millions of masks and 2,000 ventilators to hospitals. There's also drive-through testing at some local hospitals. This is from UC Medical Center, which has been getting slammed. It had to tell people to stop calling for appointments, and you can't just show up for a screening. Your primary care physician must make an appointment for you. Well, restaurants, bars, gyms, movie theaters, anything that involves crowds, pretty much shut down. As Rob mentioned, that is already having a devastating effect on those businesses. Findlay Market and OTR, the bustling heartbeats of our city, are very, very quiet right now. Restaurants are offering takeout to try to stay afloat. That includes Cincinnati's oldest establishment.
If you really think about it, Arnold's has been through the Depression, the recession, the Civil War, and a million other things, and we're going to make it through this one too.
Love to hear that optimism, and clients at local gyms are asking trainers for online sessions, FaceTime appointments, or even home visits. Scott Goodpaster runs Cincinnati Functional Fitness. He says he's doing what he can to accommodate, but it's certainly not easy.
I don't know what I'm going to do about my employees. I don't know if I should lay them off and then they collect unemployment. I mean, there's a lot of things that we have to do.
More than 150,000 people filed for unemployment this past week, and that's just in Ohio. That's nearly 30 times as many as last week. Benefits are available for anyone asked to self-quarantine by a local health authority, a medical professional, or by their employer. Ohio and Kentucky are waiving the 7-day waiting period to receive unemployment benefits. You can file online or by phone. Low-interest loans up to $2 million are available to small businesses being affected by this pandemic. The loans can be used to pay fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable, and other bills that cannot be paid because of the coronavirus's impact. The Small Business Administration will also allow long-term repayments with a maximum of 30 years for loan repayment. Businesses must first fill out a form that explains their losses. Real estate firms are adapting by holding virtual open houses. Construction projects are still full steam ahead, and the region's 2 largest companies are actually boosting production. Procter & Gamble is cranking out Charmin toilet paper at record levels. This while telling thousands of employees to work from home. Kroger is among companies scaling back store hours so they can effectively restock and clean, and dedicating the first hour of shopping to seniors. It's also one of the few hiring right now. Kroger says if you need a job, they'll hire you within 2 days. Amazon, Meijer, and Aldi are all also looking for workers. When or if Ohioans will vote in person is up in the air right now. It took a last-minute order from the state health director to postpone Tuesday's primary. Now there's a court battle for when it will actually happen. Both Governor DeWine and Secretary of State Frank LaRose want in-person voting on June 2nd.
I think it really hurts candidates who are low on funds. I mean, you're talking about extending the election now for a significant period of time. You're talking about raising more money. You're talking about continuing your communication with voters. Those kinds of things are expensive. So if you're a challenger who's not an incumbent, doesn't have a lot of money to self-finance, this puts you in a very vulnerable position.
But the state Democratic Party is suing because it says the Secretary of State doesn't have the right to unilaterally move the primary. The suit says that's the legislature's job, which could decide to make the rest of the voting by mail. Well, the virus is affecting the Reds. A staff member in Arizona tested positive. No players are affected, but all personnel who came in contact with that employee are being tested. Our special report, The Pandemic Hits Home, continues after the break with how a product shortage is being filled by a local distillery, of all places. Welcome back to First Financial Biz Beat. Congratulations to Kat Petmeyer, the Executive Director of Cincinnati Tool Bank, is another one of our 40 Under 40 honorees. Well, a local distillery is switching gears during this crisis. Carrick Spirits is in the business of creating high-proof alcohol. Well, that's a key ingredient in hand sanitizer. So the team is transitioning to the cleaning business. And the demand is so high, bartenders and servers will be rehired to package and bottle sanitizer.
It's been a crazy whirlwind over the last 24 hours. As word has gotten out that we're doing this across the country, we've had large companies reaching out to us.
You can buy the bottles at the distillery for $3. Some of the proceeds will go to other bartenders and servers currently out of a job. Frisch's is turning into a drive-through grocery store. You can get a big boy and a milkshake. Along with that, you can get milk, bread, sugar, and toilet paper if you need it. You can grab those goods in the drive-through or get them delivered. A grassroots service in Wyoming is providing free meals to the elderly and low-income families. It's called Carry Out Connection. You can contribute by making a donation when you pick up an order at places like Wyoming Community Coffee and Station Family and Barbecue. The donation pays for an extra meal. That's delivered by volunteer Door Dashers.
We're going to bring the kids along, and hopefully they just see that, you know, you can help other people out in their time of need, and you don't have to be scared, and you can take proper precautions.
And you'll need to fill out a confidential form to sign up to receive a meal, volunteer, or deliver. A downtown restaurant is providing hot meals and grocery items for servers and bartenders out of a job. Meet Us plans to feed 350 people 7 nights a week for as long as it can. The program is part of the Lee initiative that was started by a chef in Louisville. Owner Jose Salazar wants the meals to keep the service industry connected.
Actually, I cooked for the relief effort for 9/11. I was going to culinary school, and when the towers fell, we were about 20 blocks away. My culinary school was about 20 blocks away, so yeah, I was there for that, and this feels somewhat eerily like that. It's a strange, weird feeling, but you know, we just have to push through and step up and do our part.
The program is funded for the next 2 weeks. The founders of Cincinnati's largest local restaurant group are donating their salaries to their employees. Thunderdome shut down all their restaurants, which leaves their 1,300 workers jobless. Well, not only will the founders' salaries go into a relief fund for those employees, so will all proceeds from the sale of Thunderdome gift cards through the end of the month. And how about this? A customer left a $1,000 tip on a $64 check at Oriental Walk this past week. And they left a note, too, saying, "Your family and staff have always taken such great care of us through the years, and we know it's going to be a tough few months." In the scoop this week, we're talking women in business. First Financial's retail region president, Ilaria Rollins, sat down with 2 lifelong Cincinnatians who went to high school together and years and decades later went to work together.
Maura and Cindy, thank you for joining us today. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about 101 Mobility.
101 Mobility is a accessibility company. We're based in Blue Ash. We serve Cincinnati and Dayton area, and we do installations and service and rentals for different accessibility equipment in the home or small business. So ramps, stair lifts, wheelchair lifts, some auto lifts.
Wow, great. Tell me a little bit, you just finished up your first year in business. Tell me a little bit about how that first year has been.
First year has been great. We've been really lucky. We have great employees. We love taking care of our customers. I'd say the best thing about it is just really being able to help people.
I like that. Maura, you had a long and successful career in banking, and you decided to transition from banking over into owning a small business. Can you tell me a little bit about what prompted that, and has that always been an ambition for you?
Yes, definitely. I was in banking for over 20 years, and prior to that, I'd gotten my MBA, and so I had taken a lot of courses then in entrepreneurial kind of courses, you know, to own my own business, but I wanted to get some experience first. So the bank was a great place for me to learn about how to manage financials, how to manage a company. We had a lot of training there, and so it really, I thought, helped to set me up for this next step.
Nice. You opted to purchase a franchise as opposed to starting from scratch. Tell us a little bit about what helped you make that decision.
Well, Maura and I were both sort of at a crossroads in our lives, and we knew we wanted to do something together, starting some sort of business. So we went down the path. We looked at existing businesses for sale, starting a business from scratch, and really we just had a list of things that we wanted out of a business and started looking at franchises. We had a consultant helping us, and so we just looked at all different sort of concepts, which eventually led us here to 101 Mobility.
Great. Maura and Cindy, thank you so much for spending time with us today. KYLA, back to you.
Thank you so much, ladies. Well, up next on First Financial BizBeat, why a college pole vaulter decided to get back into the sport decades later. Centrifuge fund manager Sarah Anderson first tried pole vaulting while a junior in high school. She turned that into a college career in the SEC at the University of Florida, and she left it behind when she entered the workforce. Well, last year, after her 40th birthday, she decided to pick it back up.
It helps clear my mind. It helps me feel like a sense of pushing myself constantly, physically and mentally. It gives me a sense of pure concentration. And it also gives me a sense of competition, which, as a human being, I need.
And before Mike DeWine's order to shut down fitness centers and gyms because of the coronavirus, the YMCA of Greater Cincinnati was already making changes. President and CEO Jorge Perez talked about those changes with Courier publisher Jamie Smith.
Jorge, thanks for being on set with us today. I know as the Y is changing a lot of things that they do in their normal day, it's a very busy time for you as well as many others. So thanks for taking time out with us.
Thank you for having me, Jamie.
You know, as a board member of the Y, one of the things that I've been the most impressed with was you guys were not reactive. You started being proactive, you know, as soon as you started hearing about this pandemic. Talk a little bit about what you guys have done and how you've transitioned at the Y.
Well, it became pretty evident early that the very thing that we do best, which is bring people together, was the very thing that they were telling us not to do. And so we had to make some decisions about making changes to our programs, thinking about our facilities, and at the same time begin to think about what this was going to do to our communities, what impact it was going to have. Specifically, we were hearing from hospital administrators saying, is there anything you can do to help us fill the need for what we anticipate will be a significant need for individuals that are working in hospitals or going to be first responders for child care. And so we made a decision to close our facilities and pivot immediately into turning them into child care centers, and we have been full steam ahead since that decision.
Yeah, and it's such a great decision. I mean, again, you made that before school started to close, so you were already in your plan before you had to be. Talk about some of the other things that you guys have done in this process, because I know it's, you know, I always go back to every time I hear you talk about the mind, body, and spirit. That's what our mission at the Y is, right? That hasn't changed. Talk about it.
What most people think about when they think of the YMCA is the gym and swim, and I get that. I understand why they think that, but our mission brought us to that place because we believe that creating places for people to exercise, places for people to gather and swim is a great place for people to develop their spirit, their minds, and their bodies. And so when we can't do that, then we still don't stop developing spirit, minds, and bodies. We shift and we say, what do we do next? When the song The YMCA was written, the lyrics is, it's fun to stay at the YMCA. Well, nobody stays at the YMCA right now. So even as late as the 1970s, we were housing people. Well, we don't do that anymore. And when we heard that there was going to be some real specific needs, again, we pivoted and began to ask 3 questions. What are we going to do for the children of people that are going to be on the front lines. What are we going to do with our seniors? Many of them are scared. And what are we going to do for people that are going to be, that are food insecure?
Yeah. What, if there's a message that you can give to our viewers, what can they do, or is there anything they can do to help the Y in their mission right now?
Well, first of all, the thousands of members who have decided to stay with us, thank you. Because we could not do what we're doing right now without their support. And I know that they're as concerned as anybody else, but they are really helping us. Secondly, we've gotten a lot of support from the philanthropic community, the United Way, the Greater Cincinnati Community Foundation, and so many other organizations. I heard from Crossroads Community Church earlier today that are banding together to say, what do we need to do to help? And so thank you so much for doing that. There are also opportunities for volunteerism on our website at myy.org.
Okay.
And so if individuals want to sign up to serve, we won't need you to hand things out or take care of those kids on the front line, but we may need some support, maybe making some phone calls.
Okay, great. You know, I think we talked off air before we got here today. As crazy as things are right now, and there's a lot of negative things out there, it's very positive to see organizations like the YMCA, as well as many others in our city right now, are banding together, right?
There are a lot of heroes right now. As individuals are sheltering and figuring out how to protect their families, there are heroes who are out there preparing for this, who are saying, how do I get to the front lines to support? And that's public and private, and a lot of nonprofits that are figuring out new ways of delivering their services and protecting our communities. So yeah, there's a lot of things to celebrate right now.
Jorge, thanks once again for coming in today and sharing with us. Thanks for everything that you and the YMCA are doing. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Jamie.
Absolutely. Back to you, KYLA.
Thank you, Jamie and Jorge. That important reminder to look for the helpers. Well, thank you for joining us for First Financial Biz Beat. And before we go, I just want to say that we're all in this together, and it will take all of us doing the right things to get through this. But we will get through this. I'm KYLA Woods. Have a great weekend.